Hi, this video is on my use of the 3FUL XPAC backpack that I took on the Appalachian Trail in 2018. So it completed over 2,000 miles and there were very few problems with it, but I'll go over them in a little bit more detail. There were a couple of defects. I would buy this pack again, although they do have a new model and I have purchased the new model, and we'll have a video on its features and how it differs from this one and problems I potentially see with it. But overall, this was a really good pack and it was a good purchase, so I don't think you'll have a problem with it. It's an issue always of how much you can fit in the pack. This is, like I said, the large, and I believe it's 35 liters. Now, there's probably another 10 liters in the mesh pocket and the two side pockets. But I always had a bit of a problem in that I always had a lot of food, and it was tough sometimes getting the roll top down more than one fold. But that was because of how much food I took and how many clothes I took. And I took a lot more clothes than other people who were doing ultralight. I was trying to do as much as I could that. But anyway, okay, issue number one. Not a big one, but you can see how dirty it got. This has been washed already once on the trail. I think it was in Irwin when I put it in the bathtub. Partly because the straps themselves, and I believe this in the back, and the hip belt all were kind of showing the signs of a lot of salt coming from my sweat because it was quite warm. Hiking through the summer, even though you're in the shade all the time, you're going up and down, up and down, up and down. It was those ups where you can get a good sweat. And it wasn't a big problem, but I did get this a lot wider than it had been at that point and at this point. Being waterproof material, it was something that didn't really absorb anything, and it was quite quick to dry. It was just a matter of the pads. So they kind of feel like there's a plastic maybe covering the foam that's in there, so I don't think the foam really absorbed any of the water. There was a problem with the hip belt in that there are two straps that hold both sides on. These come, I believe, separately from the pack when you originally purchased it, as I recall. And the two straps that connect to the pack are there to help stabilize it, but it's really this much thicker or wider belt that goes into the pack, through the body of the pack, and out the other side, connecting with the other hip belt. And that's what really takes the weight. Now, since you're not really carrying a lot of weight, it should never normally be a problem. But I found on one side that has the buckle holding this wider belt on there, that typically in rainier weather, it would begin to loosen. And there was a point when I first discovered this problem. I was walking along and my whole hip belt kind of fell off my body, and I was just holding by the shoulder straps, and I thought I broke the pack, and it was a little concerned. Anyway, I noticed that, oh, okay, everything here finally came loose, all three buckles. So I just buckled it back on again, and it seemed to be fine. Then at another point, I found that it was just hanging on by the two smaller buckles that you can see here, and the main strap is the one that came undone. And so from that point on, I always made an effort to fold over this strap and go back through the buckle to help hold it in place. But I regularly, a couple times a week, would have to double check that and tighten it because it would come loose over time. And the effect of that was toward the end of the hike that I guess for a day, maybe two, I didn't know it, but the hip belt was being only connected to the pack by the two smaller straps. And I was in a 100-mile wilderness, so I was carrying a lot of food because I was carrying all the food for that trip. The seam where one of the straps was connected to the bag seam began to come apart, and you'll see that in the other video, or other part of the video. So I'm not sure what the overall effect of that would be on the life of the pack. I was grateful that it made it to the end, but that was the one problem that was potentially going to be catastrophic with this pack. Also, in one shoulder strap, just where it's connected to the pack, it did come undone a little bit. I can stick my finger in there, as you can see. Now, it didn't separate from the bag or anything, so I really don't think that was a problem. I could probably just sew that up and that would be the end of it. But that was the only other defect that came from the bag. occasionally, every now and then, there are these two buckles that hold the load lifters on. And I would go to pick up the pack, and I would notice that one of the clips was undone like that. So it was really pulling on the other side of the plastic clip, and it might have potentially broken, but I always seemed to catch it. And I think there was at least one case where it was completely off, and I can't remember if it was this end or it was the other end. But it always seemed to be the right-hand side as well for some reason. And it was really no problem to put it back on, but it was so easy to pop off. I was always, after a while, taking a look at those those buckles every time I went to pick up the pack and put it on. I'm sure at one point I probably carried it for a full day with this disconnected, and maybe the pack was a little bit off to one side, but not by much. My pack was very evenly loaded all the time, so it wasn't really a problem. Also, the pads, although they're a bit better now, right where it crossed over my shoulder on the top here, it was compressed permanently over the last, I don't know, third of the hike. Not that it was a big problem, because again, it was the same weight or lower as I went along, as I learned to send things home. And since there wasn't a lot of cushioning there to begin with, it was really not something that I was even aware of, other than the fact when I held it, I could tell that it was a little bit thinner here, even at the moment, just barely. But that might be natural for all backpacks with that type of thing that you're carrying for 8 hours a day for, almost 6 months. Another problem I had was this sternum strap. Now in the beginning I probably had it a little too tight, and after a while this little toggle that goes through one of the daisy chains here popped through the daisy chain and it came off, so I stuck it back in, and probably the next day it popped out again, and I thought, oh okay, maybe that loop is a little too big. So I moved it to another one. It wasn't a big change, and it was probably a better position anyway. And I never fell out from that point on, but I never really had it on tight. Also, the ribbon on this strap is very small. Not that the strength is a problem, because it's really not holding a lot of tension, but it would slide on the buckle over time. So every half hour, every hour or so, I would always pull down on the straps here to tighten those, because this one in particular always came loose. Again, it was on the right hand side, don't know why. The left hand never really had much of a problem. I always tighten that, and then I would give a little tug on the strap to pull them back in, and it again was in a nicer position, and any pain I might have had in my shoulder from moving further and further out was taken care of. And frankly, when you're walking for hours a day and not doing anything but having that stupid melody go through your head, like a bar to some stupid tone as you walked and you're breathing. I didn't listen to a podcast most of the time, so it was kind of nice to have something to do every now and then, and I never really found a problem with it. Let's see, what else? The side pockets, I had my water kit, water filtration kit in a plastic bag or a mesh bag in one side, and the other side was kind of a toiletry baby bag, so they were always available. And at one point when I was on the wait, when I had gone from a Ziploc bag that was finally beginning to rip apart to the mesh bag that so your filters come with, I guess I was going through some part of the trail that had branches sticking out, and somehow the branch caught on the mesh and pulled it out of the pack, and I didn't know that. And later that day, I saw, hey, my water filter was gone. And I had thought someone would take it potentially, but I couldn't think of why anyone would want to take it. It wasn't exactly brand new or anything like that. And then a couple of people might say, oh, was it in a mesh bag? Yeah, we saw it back about a mile away. So I ended up having to go back and get that the next morning. Other than that, I didn't have a problem with anything falling out of the side pockets. Now there is an opening, and I'll talk about that again later, but there's an opening at the bottom of the pocket. You can see my finger here, if you can. And that's for the straps to go through. And so anything small you might fit in here could potentially fall out. It's about 2, almost 3 inches in height. And I would have like I say, everything in a Ziploc bag stuffed in here, and maybe a bottle of insect repellent. So nothing was ever really going to fall out of there. And the back mesh pocket, it held my tent, my cook pot, my canister, my pack cover, my sit pad, things I wanted accessible all the time, and also my raincoat, which I sometimes stuffed in the bungee cords in the back or underneath the top compression strap. There was really no problem with it, although, as we'll see later, there are a couple holes at the very bottom. I guess that some rocks rubbed up against the titanium pot that I had in here on that side where the holes are. Not very many, and this material is pretty tough. And again, this only happened right near the end of the trek, so that stood up really well. Bungee cord stood up perfectly. There are no defects in it. There are a couple clips here to hang ice sats or trekking poles. I never used them for that, so that was there. These straps, as I'll talk about, they're awfully long. They're not necessarily to be that long at all. I could probably cut that much off on all 4 of them. It was fairly easy to put on, take off. I think in the beginning I had just over 40 pounds in this pack, which is pretty heavy. Through the bulk of the trek with a fully resupplied amount of food, it was probably closer to 30 pounds. So I guess my base weight was down around 20. Cushioning on the back, fine, because I always had soft items in my pack, except maybe at the top where I might have had a titanium spoon that might have been on the back. I think only once or twice I ever felt it, and then I would just rotate my food bag. I never had a problem with it. I didn't need the internal support of the full mattress inside the back pocket. This has no stays, so it'll be flexible. And I didn't really sweat any more in here than I would have expected. Plus, a lot of the times I had the pack kind of loose my back, so it was kind of away from me, the top part of it, a lot of the time. And when I would start up a hill, I would tighten it up again or go down a hill. It would just come loose. As I said, the strap always seemed to come slowly loose, but I don't see it being a defect of this particular brand or anything like that. Just a function of that type of nylon ribbon and the buckle. It's just going to happen over time. It happened with that one. It didn't really happen with that one. So overall, I definitely like the bag. Like I say, I would buy another one if I was going to take on another through hike. I did buy the newer version of the bag, which is just a little bit taller, by about this much, as you'll see. There were only a couple times where I had so much stuff in my bag, usually with all my cold weather gear and that taking and food for the 100-mile wilderness, I could barely get 1 or 2 turns on the top, not even 1, I think, at one point. I had a lot of food, a lot of bulk, and a lot of clothes. So the other pack will be a little better in that way. I wasn't that careful with the pack, and where I sat it down, and there's no abrasion whatsoever on the bottom. Because of the holes in the pack at the strap, it's not really waterproof, and I did find dampness underneath my internal contractor bag, but everything else in the contractor bag was already in waterproof bags, so I never had an issue with that. Plus I wore a pack cover during rain, mostly to protect the tent that I had on the outside. I can't take anything else apart, or beyond that, I would hang it by this at the shelters usually, or in a tree, and there's my nice little AT through hike, my number 1566, I think. The 2 straps here that you'll see go and connect with these, but I don't think I'll show it there, but you could also connect the 2 opposing ends here and have the top of the pack closed like that if you wanted to. I assume some people prefer that, but I could stick things in here. As I said, I usually had my raincoat. This would come over and connect with the Y strap on the back, and I would just unbuckle it, stick my raincoat in there, tighten it, and do it up again. And every now and then I would find a raincoat hanging out one side a lot more than the other, but nothing ever fell out again, and the straps never fell out. And it was a great purchase. I'm glad I had it, and I think the newer one will be a good purchase for you too. So Anyway, on with the close-up details.
Okay, here's the overview of the pack. You can see the big mesh pocket in the back that I use to carry my tent, cook pot, canister, sit pad. Sometimes I stuff my raincoat in there, pack cover, things I wanted to get to. This is the opposite side with the shoulder straps and very generous compression straps. Also the straps that you use to connect to the roll top when you rolled it down. The hip belt also connected on this side. And as we go to the next view, we can see the Y compression strap for the top and the two load lifters. These were obviously adjustable, and they were held on both on the pack end and at the strap end by these little clips. And a couple times on my truck I did have them come undone like that, and sometimes, a couple times, they actually came off the loop like that, and I would notice as soon as I would put the pack on, but that was a bit of a pain. Here's the D-link that I used to connect my water bottle, and the daisy chain along the strap so that I could put other things on there, and modify the chest strap, which is held on with that toggle there. Down toward the bottom, I looped a piece of bungee cord that I used to hold the bottom of my water bottle, and that's the adjuster strap, which connected to the pack through the opening in the two side pockets. You had to be aware that you put anything small in your side pocket and it could potentially fall out that hole, so you have to watch out for that. The two hip belts were held on with straps at this point, as well as the main strap that was like 1.5 inches wide would go in that opening through the bottom of the pack and out the other side. The side pockets were big enough for a lot of things, but I couldn't get my phone in there, and that's the adjuster strap for the main buckle. Here's the buckle itself. It held up very well, and I really didn't have a problem connecting or unconnecting it. There wasn't a lot of padding in the back, but I never had anything sticking through. I packed mostly soft things, so it was never an issue. The side pockets have a bungee cord at the top, but the material is so stiff it didn't really help keeping things from falling out. Not that I ever really had things fall out. You can see here the buckle that was the main problem for the hip belt that would come loose, and after a while I would just loop that extra bit back in through that buckle, and so that would prevent it from coming undone a little bit better. And you can see where it's ripped away the seam in the pack. I don't know if it would have continued ripping, but it was a little unnerving that had come undone, and that's when the pack was being held just by those two little straps. Again, there's the opening in the side pocket. This is the strap that's used to connect to the pull top, or full top. The full top had opposing buckles on either end, so that you could actually connect it to itself and just have a loop on the top if you wanted to do that way. And also very generous side compression straps. I never did anything with that. My pack was always bulging, so I could have cut those down if I wanted to. The top compression strap was very long, and that buckle you could adjust up and down as you needed to as you rolled or had more and more material inside your pack. These were the ISATs or trekking pole loops and top connectors, one on each side. I almost never used them. And the mesh bag itself had the bungee cord on the outside of it, which I would use to stuff things like my raincoat or the rainfly when it was wet. I never had anything fall out of that, and it was very useful, and I'm quite happy that that was a feature. The pockets were quite voluminous. On one side I would have my water filter kit, and the other side I had the toiletry kit. And since my water bottles were on the front straps, and this is the inside of the main pack, you can see where there's some elastics that would hold a foam pad in there if you wanted to go that route. I never did. There were no stays in there, and there are two little holes for the hose of platypus, or some type of water bag. The buckles held up very well. I never had a problem with them, other than the fact that as I lost weight, it became more and more of a problem to get it tight enough. This is the side bag that's open at the moment. I always had to use two hands to close it, the last maybe 10 or 20% of the zipper. It just was not liberal enough or loose enough for it to be handled one-handed. On this side, you can see where the padding is kind of rotated inside the fabric, which it did toward the end of the hike, as the pack weight would cause it to spin around. And the holes that were in the mesh developed where the pot was, as I guess I laid against some rocks or something like that. And there you can see a better look at the seam that kind of came apart. Like I said, I don't know if it would have continued, but I wasn't too happy with the fact that it happened, and the way they keep it from happening is to keep that main belt strap from ever coming undone. It's black at the bottom. You can see compared to the new pack that is a little bit taller. Okay, if you want to pack a little bit more, but smaller the pack, the less you carry, I guess. So here I am using the pack. There's nothing in it at the moment, obviously, and I'm just going to show how you can strap it together. That's how you would just loosen it a little bit before you connect it, or as I would normally do after I had it buckled. And here I seem to be having a little trouble getting it on. There, I would tighten it. Toward the end of the hike, that was a real problem. So you can see the pants are a little bit loose on me. And then I would just loosen it and then unbuckle every time. That way it was easier to do up. And the side pockets were easy to open enough, but a little bit of a pain. You had to use two hands to get that last little bit there, even when it is buckled hip belt. And let's see, what else can I talk about that? Yeah, like I said, that went very well. The seams are not waterproof, so here's the newer pack. It's the same. And the materials are very stiff, so it's very strong, and I knew I never really had to worry about punctures and that type of thing. And here you can see the buckle, the new one on the left and the old one that we're going over on the right.